Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm awesome, my friend. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Just realised there's a suitcase in the background. Apologies.
We don't use the visual.
Sound.
How you feeling, brother?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad.
Hey, you're drinking Huel. I drink Huel. Huel rocks.
Oh yeah, I've only just started actually.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's not expensive, but by comparison, it's cheap. But we're so used to paying fuck all for supplements that we think like Huel's expensive, and it feels like it is.
Made a massive. The biggest thing I've found is my energy, because like all the other stuff is in it, because that's where I was sort of lacking. I'm not, I eat all right, but it's the vitamins and minerals and supplements that I don't take much of, but because it's got all the nice healthy shit in it as well.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
At some point in time, I'm hoping to get like Athletic Greens on as a partner of the podcast. I want to get Huel on. I've approached them twice. They gave me some discount, but egotistically, I always think like, with the emergency services.
Yeah, no.
Come on, guys. This is your opportunity to maybe we're a bit shit, okay? But we're trying to get better. We're at 100 and, or 200 and something thousand, downloads. So we're not perfect. We're not trying to become inauthentic. But, obviously we're going to get better. And what people don't realize, which I'm like, in all the businesses I've ran now, the big, overwhelming, if you're shit, you're shit. You can't fake being shit. But consistency.
Keep turning up. Yeah.
Even if you do a podcast or even if you run a fitness class, or even if we've had pizza companies in the past and accommodation companies, just turn up. You know what I mean? If we do a podcast and it flops and everyone goes, oh, you got that wrong, you're all a bunch of wankers, you don't know what you're doing, are you even a firefighter? And you go, oh, that's fine. Then we'll learn and we'll just do it again and just keep doing it again and just keep doing it again. Often the people that say they hate you, they're not going to listen anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And in the very beginning, I had some shitty comments from people in my service, but that's expected because they're like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I'm nobody. I never claim to be an expert in firefighting on the podcast. I'm just learning out loud. I'm always learning myself.
Point, for me, that's the whole point of the podcast. That's the fact is we're not special. That is the whole reason why this is a successful thing, I think. That's
I've
why
done some stuff and I haven't done other stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I've got 16 years of whatever, a little bit of FI, a little bit of USAR, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I've saved some people, other people have died. I've gone for 22 promotion processes and only got 3 of them. There's better firefighters, but it's all about putting yourself out there, because so many people have got so much value to add if they just fucking get over themselves. And I see you in that same way, with the greatest of respect. You know what I mean? I've been looking around the groups and been seeing what you're doing, and I'm like, people want to hear from Mark. Or, with the greatest of respect, they don't necessarily want to hear from Mark, but they want to hear from anybody that's willing to do what Mark is doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Fire service in general, there's so many people who've got an opinion on stuff, but a tiny percentage of them actually stand up, and whether that's in good things or bad things. We had a union meeting the other night. So many people were bitching and moaning, but then as soon as they get a chance, they're okay. Well, why don't you stand up and be a rep? Why don't you stand up and put in and review this consultation document or whatever? They're like, no, I don't want to do that. All I want to do is sit here and moan about it. And then when it goes wrong, and when it goes wrong, you're like, oh, I told you. I mean, well, why didn't you say something at the time? We'll talk to the people who actually can make a difference. And it's so frustrating.
I've just reached out to one of our listeners, sent me a couple of links yesterday. It's called, I'm going to get it wrong. What's it called? It's not against the FBU, but I think it is called. It's called Campaign for a Democratic FBU. Now, the FBU have spoken to the podcast, spoken to me twice, and very nearly got Matt Rack on. You know who Matt Rack is?
Yeah.
Yeah, very nearly got him on twice.
Right, okay.
And it's just busy. That's fine, and we're all a little bit busy. But with everything that's going on at the minute, and with so many places, my service included, we want 24-hour shifts, and we want this better work-life balance, and a lot of people want stuff that doesn't feel like it's making its way up the ladder in conversations. So there's this thing, I never even heard about it, but it got pointed out to me yesterday, saying about it's a big fucking Twitter group, or it's got 5-something thousand people commenting on it and following it, saying, the FBU doesn't look after us. They don't say what it's all about. Their personal expenses are through the roof and all this sort of shit. And it's the first really controversial thing that we've entertained getting involved in. And I'm going to have them on. Well, I'm going to reach out to them. Well, I say I'm going to. I did it yesterday. I reached out to them and I'm like, look, if you want to come on, and I'm not going to facilitate a conversation between the FBU and another person because that would just end up in a bitch
No,
fest.
that'd be messy. Yeah.
But I'm happy to have each person on
Yeah.
and go, hey, what do you think? And also be that voice of reason and go, well, really, I mean, do you think people are actually stealing from it, or do you think people are really putting that much through their personal expenses? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're right, but. And I'm sure they'll go, no, we've got the documentation and we've seen this. I've gone, all right, cool. Okay. Now let's hear from the FBU. Now let's hear from CFOA. Now let's hear.
Yeah.
Because I think they're important things. And I want to discuss as well.
I think that would be a massive positive for the podcast in general, because it would be easy to turn it into a fluff a platform, wouldn't it?
Let's just talk about the nice
how amazing we are, and
talk about
So
I want to have Anna Steck. She's another woman who she did the investigations for Grenfell into the carcinogens, and she basically submitted her report, and they said, "Oh, thank you very much for your services. You're no longer required," and they didn't publish it because it basically said loads of people are going to die from this because we've all inhaled a lot of carcinogens, and now we've had all the public health. World Health Organization has declared it a carcinogenic rare path or whatever it is. So yeah, we need to address all of that. Right. Should we smash it?
Let's do it.
Beautiful. Mark, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you.
How the hell are you, my friend?
I am super.
Just mentioning you're smashing the Huel now. You just got on the Huel. What's the crap with that?
Smashing, I've just started. Yeah, it was basically after holiday. I indulged a bit too much on an all-inclusive, so I thought I wanted a nice, easy way to cut down and increase everything. Yeah. So
what do you like when you go on the all-inclusive? Do you drink?
Yeah. It depends. I mean, it was a family holiday, so there was a cap on it. It was only with a missus and two kids.
It wasn't falling into the pool with a daiquiri or anything like that.
No. There was a lot of daiquiris. There was we enjoyed the hell out of the cocktail of the day, I've got to admit, because it was slow and steady over the day. I was never proper sort of drunk and trying to be a good role model, etc. But hey ho.
I've been terrible at taking holidays with the family. I need to get better at that discipline. Look, so we connected because there's been a growing swell of well, I suppose there's two sides to this coin, really. I mean, there's the weird freaks like myself and the BFC lot and the Welsh Firefighter Challenge who are romantic about the whole kind of like, oh, firefighters should be absolute goddamn savages and we should all be able to sprint up 1 million staircases and then pull down 27 babies and get 6 puppies on the 6th floor and then high five everyone with the hose pack when we're coming out the door at the bottom. I think that's a very small amount of us. And actually, for a long career, which is what we're sort of going to be getting on to talking about today, that's not always completely necessary because there is the larger part of the UK Fire and Rescue Service and further afield who are all becoming a little bit more conscious about this whole like staying fit until I'm 60 or at least 55. So we first connected around, Fitness on the Frontline. Just give us a whistle-stop tour of how that kind of got started and how you find yourself bullshitting with me on today.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, that's a good little segue. That's basically how it started, because I started off, I've always been into fitness and things. And through the FBU, I managed to do the PT course, so I got the qualification. And initially, it was for my own interest, really, and I thought I could improve myself. But then I've found as soon as somebody knows you've got a qualification or an interest in something, you become a magnet for people sort of coming towards you, and they start asking. It starts off with the odd conversation over a brew or whatever, then it turns into.
I think it starts with piss take first,
definitely,
and then quietly, it's piss take in the mess room, and then when you're in the gym, they're kind of like, "Hey, Mark, can you just I've got this thing, right? Can you just I mean, I don't really want to share it with the rest of the guys and girls, but like, could you help me with this because I'm thinking about this a little bit more." And that happens all the goddamn time, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly, and that's basically how it started, and it sort of grew and grew into. Then I designed the odd little, might have been a one-off sort of session, and then somebody came to me and said, "I'm doing the World Firefighter Games," so I did like a personalised sort of program, if you like, for that, and it started to build up. So at that point, it was like I feel like I could do this as a career, really. So I learned more, went on more courses, read loads of books, started as a proper PT in various sort of forms of like in big box gyms and little gyms, online coaching and things. And cut a long, boring story short, that's where I've always had an interest in, exactly as you were saying, there's a big perception, and it's a good thing and a bad thing that we're hyper fit sort of individuals. You can, as you were saying, sort of take on the world, which is good to have that respect, I suppose. And there is a certain element of truth that it is a requirement of the job. However, the realities of the role and a lot of people in the role, as it scares a lot of people as well, and they feel like if they're not at a certain level, if they're not like the firefighters on the calendars, and they're sometimes not as good as a firefighter, or and
you know what, they don't actually make for the best firefighters. I've found when I quote unquote like looked my best or might be able to lift the most in the gym was probably some of the periods where I wasn't the most effective firefighter. Because as I've kind of learned as you move through it, and you see this a lot actually when we do all the challenges, and even when you see people coming on entry selection tests, the quote unquote ideal athlete, like you're an amazing CrossFitter or something like that, they just fall to pieces on some of these courses because being expected to operate in effectively Wellingtons in a sleeping bag and then carry a bunch of random shit at the same time really does require a whole different kind of approach to your health and wellness and your fitness.
Yeah, and that's what my major for focus on. It's not to be the biggest or the strongest or the fastest and run a marathon in 20 minutes. It's not. It's about being fit for the job, and that's where like the link into to aging, because there's a massive like for me there's a difference between being fit and being healthy. And being fit is like it's in a technical term is like the ability to do a particular task, and healthy is something that we've got less control of in a physical way. That tends to be like your heart health, and can only be sort of really assessed by sort of things like blood tests and things like that. So being fit for purpose essentially. So and again we'll talk about the fitness test a bit later, but some of the fitness tests, they're not the best reflection of the ability to do the job. And as we get older, you may get technically not as fit, but it means you can't, it's not as easy to press your like your body weight above your head. However, that's not a reflection of the job. So being fit for a firefighter is all you need, and that's the part where we need to play around in, and that's the bit we need to focus on.
And I think as well, a lot of people gravitate towards aerobic stuff, which is good to an extent, and we're going to get into maybe some of the differentiations. But like you used an analogy there of can I run 20 miles or can I run a marathon? I think we've got like 3 or 4 people in my service at the minute who are really, really fit. One's an ultra marathon run, one's a triathlete, and the other 2 are just like long distance runners. They're all off of bad backs at the minute because, with the greatest respect, being 10 stone or whatever, piss wet through, and being able to run a marathon doesn't help you when you're trying to drag something off the side of the truck in a full set of kit and then carry it around the side, or you've just got a single hand on a big 13.5 Lake on ladder or something like that. It's difficult to sustain or develop that aspect if you're just focused on long distance stuff. And I see that especially a lot with women sometimes, bless them. I think it can be scarier for females to go into gym environments, or it certainly used to be. I think CrossFit, for all of its craziness sometimes, it has done a lot for encouraging people to, certainly encouraging females to approach weights in a different way. Because again, they just used to have such bad backs and all that sort of stuff because they just used to run and do cardio. They were kind of scared of how to do stuff right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that's changing. It's a society thing, really. And I think it's a combination of being a bit nervous to go in, but also that a lot of the older gyms, especially sort of 10, 20 years ago, were very much, around a lot of the meathead sort of thing. There's a lot of grunting and groaning.
Fucking me, mate, taking masses of steroids, deadlifting 350 kilos and throwing chalk at anyone that comes within 10 feet of me. That's not a very nice place to be, is it?
Exactly. And it's not good long term for anyone. Exactly. So, you can imagine somebody sort of building up the confidence. Oh, right, I'm going to join the gym, and they walk in, and then they see you sort of bench pressing a Mini Cooper. You're like, no, fuck that. I'm not doing that. So,
but again, I have managed to slow. I felt like I was accelerating towards a cliff, doing the whole live fast, die young. I don't care as long as I can lift all this weight. But it's become more of a realization for me as I've kind of fallen head over heels more with the job actually that. I mean, some of the content we were talking about today about that getting older, can I keep doing this for the next 30 years? Because when we were discussing before we came on, although the pension scheme was in place like long before, it has gone through different variations. The default retirement age was abolished in 2011. So 30 years or 55 years, all that sort of stuff. And retirement profile, as we look at it now, gave us the perception that people couldn't do the job beyond a certain length of service. Like we used to let them go and sit in the front and be a driver, or you would expect somebody to naturally progress into like the incident command perspective. But now there's a battle to kind of change that mindset, both from the public and also from the people in the job, that you can stay fit and healthy up until that age, because there's a real fear of people 55, 60 years of age putting a BA set on and having to come in and carry out a rescue. And even for the public, that might not fill them with confidence. But if done correctly, there is more sustainable ways to look at it in terms of educating people on that, I suppose, more than anything else. Hey folks, I wanted to jump in here and just share with you a really exciting update from our partner William Wood Watches. They are launching the first ever field watch collection. Now it's named Fearless, which firstly, absolutely love, and this new collection is very different from anything they've ever launched before. However, you will see that they've managed to maintain some of the signature William Wood watch elements. The big thing for me is that black fire hose. So they have got, the first ever time they've done this, the black fire hose strap and a really, really cool case back. So now the watches are available in 3 colors this time. These are red, orange, which is my favorite, and the yellow. Each watch features those straps that are made up from repurposed black fire hose. That stuff looks the absolute bee's knees, guys. They've never done that one before. So go and take a look at that. And they've also got a textured dial to represent charcoal. You know, I mean, honestly, I never know how they're going to keep going deeper with this. Every time they do, I'm like, I was going to say, where are they getting this from? But I know where they're getting it from, because they're speaking to the boots on the ground. They're speaking to you, they're speaking to me, they're speaking to firefighters and frontline operators and getting just these amazing insights. The creativity in this is amazing. Now, the cases come down in size from 41mm to 40mm. And another new thing is they've got a unique firefighter helmet visor case back. So flip it on the back. In fact, go over to the website and you'll see the photos. That visor case back, guys, it just looks absolutely incredible. Now the watches are available to buy immediately, like right now, and they can be delivered within 24 hours in the UK and 48 hours from UPS collection in the US. The link to William Wood Watches is in the notes below this episode. You will not regret it. I am 100% putting this on my list. I'm going to be nagging them like crazy because I know you can pay in 3 stages as well. You haven't got to go in full whack on this. The new Fearless collection, William Wood Watches. Go check it out.
And as you said, it comes from both sides. There's a public perception of of not wanting a truck full of 60-year-olds to turn up if the house is on fire. So there's which wouldn't be a great look, but it's all in relative terms again, because I think there's a bit of a misconception, and to be honest, I've only found this out sort of recently. But there was a study, a Dutch sort of study, and it was only a small scale, so how valuable it is, I'm not sure, because the numbers were quite small. However, they did a test on over under 40-year-old firefighters and above, basically, and they split jobs and tasks into I think they described it as technical help, so i.e. the less energetic but the more sort of technical jobs, if you like, and then the fire extinction, that they called it, but they're like the physical, when you're dragging someone out of a building. And they didn't see much difference between the older firefighters and the younger firefighters.
Really?
But the biggest thing that changed was the biggest sort of difference within the age groups was actually in the technical jobs, not the physical jobs. Now, it's a funny way of looking at a test, because there's a couple of reasons. Obviously, they might have been sort of slower on the technical jobs, but it was sort of suggested that it was down to reaction times, things like that. However, there was the opposite argument, is because if you're more experienced, you do sort of take a breath a little bit more and think, right, and you're a bit more sort of logical, and you slow yourself down on purpose. And also there's a big restriction, generally, not always, but in a lot of the most reactive jobs that we go to, you're sort of limited by the amount of air in your BA set, for example. So you can't ever go beyond like 24 minutes or whatever it is, depending on the brigade. There are obviously jobs and RTCs. I mean, the time, a few years ago now, the only time I've nearly passed out on a job was actually an RTC. We were trying to cut a bloke out, but it was quite a messy one, and it was really sort of, it wasn't like you get in the presentations when you just snip here, the roof comes off. It like the car was in a bit of a mess, so it was a snip, nibble type one, and it was roasting hot in the height of summer. And it went on for it felt like 2 hours. It's probably like sort of 45 minutes, but it was a long one, and that's the only time I felt like. And as you said before, in all the gear, they're the jobs that get you. But age wise, there's not as much of a difference. A lot of it is a mental side, and I find that with the fitness test, because I do the fitness testing as well from a brigade in Staffordshire. And a lot of people sort of stress about the fitness tests, and they get to a certain point. So, say for example, for the 12-minute Chester treadmill test, they get to 8-9 minutes, and you can see them physically change. Like, oh, I'm coming towards the end.
Yeah.
And this is the bit I always sort of struggle at. They've sort of talked themselves into it, and I'm not saying that there isn't any issues, because there are. Because your body does lose sort of muscle, sort of density as you get older, and you can't stop that. However, you can slow that down, which coming back full circle to the type of things that I preach a bit on the program that I run at Fitness For the Frontline, it's about sort of slowing it down, and it's about the about training and preparing for that. So it's not to say, oh, I'm getting old now, I can't do any sort of strength training. But it's not going the other way, thinking that you're going to be sort of Eddie Hall and doing all the crazy stuff you used to do when you're younger. It's finding that sort of happy medium and thinking, what do I work with every day? Like I pick up a ladder every day, I pick up an LPP and like the cutting gear and things like that. They're the weights that we should be playing around with, not in terms of the physical equipment. I'm not saying you should sort of start to press an LPP, but I mean, if you get the weight of an LPP or the cutters, they're the weights in the gym that we should be in that area and that sort of game park. There's no need to bust your gut and do a million burpees and and do all these sort of challenges. Obviously, if you want to, I'm not saying you can't do it,
Yeah.
but as a rule of thumb for a standard sort of session, just play around with what you've got, and they're the areas that we should be sort of focusing on. And that can slow down, not the aging process. I can't sort of take any things for your face or your hair loss and graying and things like that. In terms of how your body acts, I think we can be a lot more. What's the word? As we are with sort of CS sort of duties and community safety, we're much on the prevent side and
Yeah,
stop a problem
100%.
before it happens, etc. There's
I
no
always
reason
say
why we
stack
can't
the
have that
deck in
with
your
fitness.
favor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Stack the
exactly,
deck in your
exactly.
favor. There's loads of ways you can train smarter rather than just training harder. Because training harder is not sustainable. You're eventually just going to break your body down. We mentioned there around some of the selection tests and some of the fitness tests that you partake in. You carry these out for your service, and we'll sort of segue for a minute. I mean, we've been looking at a few different services across the UK just to try and get an indication. So for people that are completely unfamiliar, we're going to have a quick glance through, I think it's Bedfordshire we've got up at the minute. So as we all kind of know and we already appreciate that the role of a firefighter is very physically demanding. Firefighters are required to maintain good levels of general fitness throughout their entire careers, and that's the bit people need to remember. It's not just doing these for the initial entry selection tests or doing them annually. That should be a baseline. It always worries me when people see that as the pass mark, as though that's all they need to achieve. I don't think we should be giving people heads up when we're coming to do fitness tests. I know
Agree.
people that give like a month or two and they say, oh, you've got your fitness test coming up, and then people start trying to get themselves in shape. So with a view of physical preparation for the national fire selection tests, part of everyday job, people are required to do a myriad of different tests. So the way to prepare for them, and we're just going to look through the document and pull up a few things. Aerobic fitness. Now, it's a massive thing that people need to nail, and it doesn't again mean you need to be doing 20-mile runs or anything like that. But if you are working towards getting into a service or something like that, you should try and increase it slowly. Don't just, I mean, the Couch to 5K is a great example of it. Don't just come out and decide tomorrow I'm going to run a marathon, and just because you've read David Goggins' book, you think you can go out there and just be hard. So over a sort of 8 to 12 week period, people should be able to see a really significant difference, maybe 10 to 15% in their individual aerobic capacity. And this will give them a great baseline for something like the selection tests. Little things people can have a go at. So you can easily determine your current level of aerobic fitness by performing your best effort. So a 1.5 mile run. I'm pretty sure the 1.5 mile run is generic across a lot of frontline services. I think that's what the military uses as a selection test as well. Or performing like a multi-stage shuttle run test, something like a bleep test. You can do that absolutely anywhere. Your local gym, your leisure centre. You can just do it at the park if you don't want anybody to see you. The 1.5 mile run can be measured if you just drive around a clearly flat area. You can use things like Strava. Most running tracks, well, pretty much every running track out there is going to be 400 meters. So think about that in terms of how easily you could scale that up to do something. And then when we speak about the diverse aspects of the role, we'll go into some of the different things that people get tested in. When you run the initial fireground selection tests and stuff like that, buddy, what are some of the challenges that you see people facing? You said they sort of get to that wall at certain piss, because there is an actual selection test that's based on the fireground selection test, isn't there? And a lot of
Yeah,
people do the chest-to-step test, but a couple of services do actually do that the sort of equipment circuit simulation
yeah.
thing, don't they?
Yeah, exactly, and this is something I'm a big advocate of because as much because I know that the Chester treadmill test and there's a step test, a rower version, things like that. They're great, but again, as we were saying earlier about being sort of fit for what? What do you want to be fit for? And for me, it's not fire service related. It's all about your cardiovascular, sort of like the performance of your lungs, which
Mm.
obviously is important to measure, but it's been designed in a university and and it's quite a technical test in terms of the reason why it was built was for technical reasons.
Mm.
Where for me, that's why I love the fireground test, because it's so much more related to the job. We don't do it as in Staffordshire. I can only speak of personally, but there's obviously the rural tests and the application stage, and that's like a mini version of that. But then the main one is the bleep test, and you've got to reach, I think it's 9.6 or 9.4 you've got to get to.
Is it really?
Yeah, and then that's only on the
I think
initial.
some
Then,
services are like 8. I think it's
no, I'm
pretty
sure.
freaking low. I would love it to be higher.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
only on the initial. Then when you do it, if you do it as a yearly option, because we've got the normal sort of fitness test, but then beyond that, you just have to maintain. If it's 9.6, say it's 8.6, you have to maintain. But I can't remember if it's zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.4.
Why would we drop it?
Well, exactly. That's there's a whole. This is the whole.
Where's
A
the
lot
analogy
of
coming for that? I don't
exactly.
understand
Yeah,
that.
I don't know why you don't. I
That
think
almost
I
sets
think
you
their
up with a
argument
mindset that
exactly.
my best time is when I first joined, and then I'm just
Yeah.
going to get shit from there
And then
right out.
I'm expected to
That's
go
not,
down.
yeah, I'm
Yeah, and
expected to.
their
Yeah,
argument is
we're going
it's
to
meant to
immediately
take
lower the
into
bar as soon as I'm.
exactly, yeah. From day one on station, that's it. I can start eating a pasty. But I think their argument is there is because of the natural decline of your body, which can't be stopped. However, for a fitness test, for me, if you're using a fitness test to mark the minimum bar you got to be that they've rightly or wrongly that they've chosen sort of this bar in this particular test to meet to get the job, then that should be met every day you're on duty. And rightly or wrongly, I'm a big believer in that. And as you said earlier, I think that we should be able to turn up at stations and go right. Everyone sort of do the test. And I know a lot of people are against that, but it tends to be
Sorry,
yeah.
that's
Well,
it.
yeah,
That was the inner voice. That
yeah.
sounds harsh,
It's
but like,
yeah,
yeah,
it's hard to argue a case for
the bells
that.
are going to go down at any second. So
Exactly.
we're trying to ask you. So this is a fitness test based on a challenging incident that you might have to face in a theoretical
Yeah.
aerobic capacity that you'd be required to perform that for your public. And we had Steve Dudney on recently, and he articulated perfectly that you've got a family, you've got a partner, you've got a parents, you've got whatever. They pay taxes. What do they expect from their ambulance service? They expect them that if something goes wrong, they're going to come and they're going to resuscitate you. They're going to be able to do that. What do you expect from the fire service? If I have a fire and I get stuck, they're going to come and they're going to be able to rescue me. Right. Do they not deserve that then? Do they not deserve that? Do the people of this community where your station is based, do they not deserve that very same thing? They pay the same taxes. They expect that someone is going to come. They are competent and they are fit and healthy enough to carry out the task and save that person. How sad would it be? And it'd probably never get written down in the report that the person wasn't able to be saved because the firefighter wasn't fit enough. But I guarantee you there's a factor in there somewhere. It might only be 5%, it might be less. But when people went, oh, fuck it, no, this is just, because it's always in the back of your mind. You know, when you go into a BA job, you always think, oh, how heavy's this? I haven't worn it in a while. Bloody hell, the hose not coming in very well. Oh, fucking hell, I'm pulling it and nobody's feeding it in. Oh, it's got stuck
Yeah.
somewhere. You know, every second of the way, your mind is kind of like, fuck it. It keeps saying every time, we're like, dude, just go back. Dude, just go back. We've tried, we've done our bit. And if people sincerely believe that they are struggling because they're not fit enough, that ram it voice in their head is going to be louder, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as we said at the very beginning, since the retirement age changed, I do think there is a mental thing that's been put in operational people as well, that because it used to be retire at 55 or 30 years, whichever came sort of sooner.
Yeah.
But now that's obviously been open ended. Everyone's gone, well, there must have been a reason why it was that before. So obviously I'm not. That means at 55, when I'm 55 years and 1 day old, I can't do the job anymore. And they wouldn't ever say that out loud, but it's been sort of inbred in them over years, when in fact that's not the whole point. The retirement age is gone is because we're living longer, because we're fitter for longer, and we've got the opportunity to be fitter for longer. So a lot of people have the attitude, oh, I can't do it because I'm getting older, or oh, I struggle, I'm nearly 50 now, I'm bound to struggle. And you think that's a strange attitude for me, especially in this type of role where you may have to rely. And from a selfish point of view, as an operational firefighter, I want the person I'm wearing sort of be able with. If I fall over, if I get sort of a
No.
brick falls on me or something, well, hopefully something heavier than a brick would knock me over. But
If I get clocked with an accidental feather on the way
yeah,
through,
yeah.
if I get some offensive language, I might hit the deck. You know.
But I
Yeah, no,
want to
you're
know
absolutely right, mate. I regularly think
the
that
mate can pull me out. You know
when
what I
we
mean?
test with a 55 kilo dummy, and I'm like,
Yeah,
what is this
yeah,
shit? You know, I'm
yeah,
like, I've lost like 6 stone. I used to be stupid heavy, but I'm still like 17 and a half
yeah.
stone. Do you
Exactly.
know what I mean? And when we're on stations and I say to firefighters, men, women, whatever, And I'm like, right, we're going to do some casualty handling today or whatever, and we're just going to use me, and we're going to assess different techniques and stuff like that. And some people, they struggle, and then they go, well, that's not really fair though, is it, Pete? Because how often do we train with a 100-kilo dummy? It's not really a fair test. And I'm like, I'm heavy. I get that, right? But have you fucking seen the general population these days? Yeah. We are not getting smaller. So for me, I'd love just get rid of all 35-kilo dummies, get rid of all 55-kilo dummies, only train with 10 stone and above, 65 kilo and above. Even if you need to do it in a team of two, because you're going to be in a team of two anyway. We've got lots of mechanical advantage. We've got casualty handling strops. We've got all this stuff we can use now. I feel a little bit like I'm getting worried. The balance is going to have to shift at some point. Otherwise, we are going to be setting people up to fail when we go, just go with that 9 stone dummy. How many people at 9 stone are getting stuck in the building? It's not. It's the people who are ill, infirm, obese, immobile. They're not light people.
And if you can imagine the mental effect that would have, what's worse, not being able to get to a building or get into somebody, and you haven't got the strength to pull them out, and you have to leave them there and leave. Imagine the mental effect on a firefighter that would be to have to make the choice. Right, I've ran out of air. I'm gonna have to leave you because I ain't got the. You know what I mean?
You'll get a chief's commendation, and everyone will say well done, and sincerely well done. But when you go to bed at night, you'll be like, you know what, I wasn't good enough. And no one's going to be able to help it.
Exactly.
I've referenced a few times this chest to treadmill test, dude. So I just wanted to run through it. Do you want to run through it?
Yeah, sound. Yeah, I mean it's quite simple, but basically the speed stays the same. So you set your treadmill to 6.2, and that stays the same for the whole to test. And you start off every 2 minutes. The incline of the test goes up by 3. So at 2 minutes goes up to 3, at 4 minutes goes up to 6, etc. All the way up to on the 10th minute it goes up to level 15, I think, percentage incline, and then you do that up until the 12th minute, and then you stop. So obviously
there's a people allowed to do this at a run, because there's a whole debate around run, jog, or you should never have to run on a fire ground, and it's more like a march. I've seen a couple of services do it.
It's an awkward speed. It's an awkward speed because for me, I mean, on average height, I'm only sort of 6 foot, so it's too slow for a walk. It's too slow for a run, but it's too fast for a walk. So you're not like in between.
Like every third step, you kind of want to skip, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And again, because they're constantly, the tests have stayed the same for years, but they constantly sort of tweak little bits of it. So it used to be from minute 10 you're allowed to run. So for the last 2 minutes you're allowed to run. And I think that's still the same, but for me, it's the bigger picture of it. So if there's obviously a pass and fail of the test, there's sort of stages. If you reach 10 minutes but not the 12, then you're not off the run, but you have to redo. That's when you do the fireground test, which is when you use all the equipment off the truck and things like that. And then so you've got a second chance essentially. If you don't get below 10, if you get below 10, then you've got to redo. You're technically you shouldn't be on the run and things like that.
Why do you think we don't use the equipment ground test more? I would love to see that, because again, from my experience, when I always do manuals and stuff like that, we don't do the treadmill testing kit. You can wear a nice t-shirt and shorts and a pair of trainers. So again, I don't feel it's as accurate. Whereas the equipment, the equipment ground, or the instant ground equipment test is a much more reflective of the job.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's something I'm a big advocate of. To be honest, I think it's a classic fire service thing of change, because things have been how they have been, and somebody spent a lot of money working out that the chest to treadmill test reflects this, reflects that, and in a technical aspect, I think I don't know why it's not been rolled out for us as a brigade. It tends to be if you can't do this, like the chest to treadmill or the bleep test and things like that, then you do it. But for me, 100%, because it also gives you that's a realistic reflection of what you might have to do in a job. And having a time limit also helps, because it looks slightly different to the one that you brought up. Ours is a little bit different because it's using equipment off the truck, so you have to sort of run the hose reel out and with the BA set on and run it back.
Run us through what you do then, step by step, because we'll try and put a link into this one for people that are unfamiliar, maybe people that are going for selection or they want to set it up at home. But
right, okay, so the Fireground fitness test is basically a lot more relevant to the job role itself, because you're using actual equipment off the truck, and obviously you're in full fire kit as well, which is a massive help. So it starts off, you're carrying, first of all, 2 dumbbells, which obviously we don't carry on the truck, but that's the only bit of the test that
I'm trying to get a pair on my truck though.
Yeah, yeah, I
Just
can
for
imagine.
shits and giggles at a stack fire or something. Because it's nice to get a pump, right? Just every now and again.
Yeah.
Just trying to decide whether or not we get the 35s or the
Where's
25s, but
Where's Pete gone? He's over in the corner.
it's...
So yeah, so it starts off. You're in full fire kit, and you do 8 lengths, as in 4 25 meters, basically. So carrying the dumbbells, you walk 25 meters, come back and do that 4 times. So when you come back to the truck, you'll have a BA set that's waiting for you, and you don the BA set, or you just put it over your shoulders, and then you drag out the hose reel from the truck. Again, it's 25 meters, so it's always a 25 meter distance. So you drag the hose reel out, come back, you drag some more hose off, if that makes sense. So you've pulled the branch on the first section, you've ran back to the
Yeah, like
truck,
you're flaking
then
out.
exactly, and then you come back, and still in BA, you drag the casualty up to where the end of the branch is, so 25 meters away. Then you come back with the branch, and that's where you take your BA set off. So you're just in your fire kit again, and then you go on to the hose running
Don't
sort of side
drop
of
it
it.
too hard on the floor.
Exactly, yeah. Or drag it, or drag the branch. That's all my big thing. I hate it when people sort of are dragging the branch across the floor, across the sort of like the gravel. Who knows? So that's that set section of it. So still with no break, obviously, you move along to the hose, and forget the amount of times, but you basically there's various rolled hose sort of waiting for you. So in a various amount of times, it adds up to about 10-ish times there and back, doing various combinations of picking up the hose, walking 25 meters and back. And then there's a section of picking up both the hose. You've got a hose in each hand. You drop them both, then you roll out one hose, and then you run back, get the other hose, and you roll that out. And it's just various sort of combinations of that off
Simulating
and
putting a
on.
hydrant in, basically.
Yeah, essentially. So then you do that until the rest of the time. The time limit for that is 11 minutes, 11 seconds. Don't ask me where that precise time came from, but that's the pass and fail. So with that, there's no heart rate, there's no blood pressure or anything like that. It's just physically, can you do that task
Hmm.
in under 11 minutes, 11 seconds? And it's a lot more hard work, but it's more enjoyable in a way because it's a mix of things for a start. So you're not just sort of walking on a treadmill for 12 minutes, which can be sort of mind
Someone
numbing
fucking
anyway.
staring at you, looking at yourself in the mirror.
Exactly. Yeah, with a
Yeah,
clipboard.
yeah.
How are you feeling from a scale of 1 to 10? I hear myself because that's exactly what
I
I do. And I bore
know.
myself saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you again." And the 2 minutes comes around really quick, so you feel like all you're asking. So, what are you on a
Yeah.
scale of number 10? If it's a zero, you sat down. You shut up. But yeah, so there isn't any of that, which is so much better because in a real life sort of job, your heart rate will go up and down, and it is a reactive sort of a fluid environment, and that's the
Hmm.
whole point of this test. There's a bit of walking, a bit of running, a bit of picking up and carrying, sort of like, so your strength endurance, which should be everyone's focus really, because it's that act of keep going, keep plodding on, whatever you've got in your hands and whatever you're wearing, whatever the temperature, whatever physical the task is, just keep sort of plodding on, and that's what this sort of test reflects, and that's what I think it is so much better than the other ones that we've got.
I much prefer it, mate, as a general one. And again, there's a different variation, and we'll probably put it out there on one of the attachments. I think Derbyshire do a version of it that help people for getting into the job, where you can simulate different aspects to it. I wanted to jump for a second back onto the sort of aging side of it, because I was looking before we came on about a piece from the FBU. Some people love or hate the FBU, but obviously they're to some extent the voice of UK Fire and Rescue Service, and disclosure, other unions do exist, of course. But they were saying in one of their circulars, and if you go over to their website, you can have a look, that they've made it absolutely clear that there's so much evidence out there that suggests that the majority of firefighters will not be able to maintain their safe operational fitness until the age of 60s. And they're taking that as a, sort of their official position, and they've stressed the imposition of a normal pension age of 60 in the 2015 scheme, obviously except for Northern Ireland where they do the 55 thing, disproportionately discriminates against women firefighters. I was looking at some studies before we came on around female fitness, and there's sort of an argument, and I don't want to go too much into the chemical side of it because it's difficult for us to look at, but I think there's been more attention given to the sort of decrease in female fitness, because unlike men, when we go through the general deterioration of our like testosterone and stuff, it happens from like age 30 onwards, sometimes a little bit younger for some males, and it happens progressively. Like our testosterone stores start to generally deplete. We just have a little bit less drive. We hold a little bit less muscle mass. We hold more adipose tissue and all that sort of shit. Whereas for women, when they go through menopause, it's almost a really immediate and steep drop of estrogen. And that's why I think it's so upsetting, and so shocking. And they feel like it's a bigger change for them because it's so obvious. You know what I mean? It's not been a progressive, it's not like creeping death. It's like it hits them at different ages. Some women will go through it in their 40s, sometimes less, but generally around sort of 45 to 55, most women will start experience menopause. Have you looked into any of the sort of aging process for female firefighters, and is there a big differentiation? Do you sort of have any opinion on that?
Yeah, huge, really, and it's something that that is under resourced and under researched in the fire service in general, and in most sort of all walks of life, really. And I think that's again, it's a generational thing because obviously female firefighters were a lot less sort of, even when I started 16 years ago, there wasn't even one per watch, I would guess
Yeah.
then. And now obviously, and rightly so, as long as you can meet the minimum standards, then it should be treated the same as men. And things like the aspects of menopause and things like that, it's so important. It's such under researched sort of
Yeah.
side of the fire service that it's something, again, I'd love to get more involved in, really. But because it's a physical and chemical reaction inside a woman's body. It's not, there is a macho sort of thing of it. I was just, it's not. It's more than just hot flushes and things like that. There's an actual sort of chemical reaction. So it is something that needs to be looked at, and what support and what form that comes in. I'm not an expert in it, so I wouldn't like to make sort of rash sort of judgments in it. But it is something that they need to be supported a lot more, and a lot more advice sort of given. And the same, going back a little bit to the well, I say the male side, but for firefighters in general, even though I think it's important to, although there is must we do change as we get older and things do get harder, but it doesn't mean there isn't anything that we can do about it. So it's not denying that there is changes, and I'm not saying that being a firefighter at 60 is going to be easy and things like that, and all you got to do is do this and do that. It's not that at all. It's all about adjusting what we do, so not sort of giving up. And the same with female firefighters. There are ways to sort of train specifically for that, and at different times of the week, different times of the month, and things like that. You can support yourself. And again, I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but definitely it is something that we can overcome.
Hmm.
In terms of what I see on a day-to-day basis, and I'm sure you'll say the same. I don't notice females getting like their standards sort of dropping any more than I do sort of males. So
I
whether
think
that
women are actually a
means
bit better.
yeah,
You know
I
what I
think
mean? I think the problem
they've
is
definitely
because
got
there's
more of
less
a
of
get on with
them,
it.
that if you have somebody that really struggles, it makes up a larger part of the percentage, if that makes sense. Like if you've
Yeah,
only
yeah,
got two women
yeah,
on your
true.
watch and one of them's really struggling with their personal health,
Yeah,
then technically 50% are struggling. But in general, because I personally feel that females have had to overcome more challenges getting into the job, they kind of have a
definitely.
higher
Yeah,
expectation for themselves.
yeah,
So they tend to stay, up to date with the SOPs, up to date with the National Operational Guidance. They tend to perform well in processes and procedures and tests and things like that because they kind of expect more than for themselves because they're aware that they're coming from a bit of a deficit anyway.
100%. Yeah,
So I think for women certainly that choose this type of role, I think and this is just again my own sort of personal feelings, I think they will fare better as they age in the job because I think they'll be more conscious of it. My big worry is some of the guys that still live in that mindset of we can have a massive lunch and then cakes after the washdown on Sunday, and because the problem is they're saying, oh, but that's what we did when I joined and that's what my gaffer did. Yeah, but
yeah,
he was on that old scheme. He was out when he was
yeah.
55, or he was out after 30 years. If he joined when he was 18,
Mm,
he was 53 and he was out the job. You're 54 now and you've got 10 years left.
yeah.
That shit's not going to fly. And
No.
also food, people struggle these days just overeating and over drinking, and I don't think COVID helped.
I think that's, yeah, and a huge thing to add to that is the crewing sort of levels now.
Oh
So I don't
God,
know what
yeah.
it's like where you are now, but we're riding fours now as our main sort of pump
Well,
rescue.
that's
So
it. Yep.
yeah,
And,
and
and
it's
we've got we've got tactical response vehicles and different variations of vehicles where you
yeah,
ride two.
yeah, yeah. We're where I am specifically because I work at Burton, which is quite a rural town. It's not rural, but it's more rural than a lot of places around us. So if we're relying on the retain for a lot as our sort of a second pump, and a lot of time they're not on the run, or it's coming from a place that's half an hour away. So there has been a few sort of scary moments over the last, because us riding forwards has only been happening in the last sort of couple of months.
Has it?
And
Jeez.
yeah, and it's, and sometimes we've been to a couple of jobs that are on the we've been lucky at the moment where we've had a couple of jobs on the verge of being a bit hairy, and we've had to wait sort of 20 to 25 minutes.
Especially for the driver, mate. I mean, well, it's
Exactly,
hard for everybody, but
horrific. It's
if it's a
horrific.
going job, let's use,
Yeah,
a standard residential or something like that. You
yeah,
obviously, your 2BA are going in, so they're going balls to the wall or, whatever to the wall, going in there, doing their bit. Drivers doing your command sport, they're doing your edge control, they've got to flake out the hydrant, they've got to run out the hose
yeah,
reel. That is a hard ass job.
yeah. It's horrible. It's horrible, and it's, and that again, taking it sort of back to age, that's where, as you were saying earlier, when we used to retire for 55, that was, I joined on a watch that would either ride 9 or 11 on a shift, with like a
Yeah.
watch of 13 to 15. So you could not hide in there doing it on purpose, but they were a bit protected, as you were saying. They could sort of drive, or be the second pump, and be the tender and things like that, where that doesn't exist anymore. So you've got there isn't a hiding place anymore. And obviously, I don't mean intentionally hiding, but there
No,
isn't
yeah. Well, mate,
there
some
isn't
people
an
do.
easier role,
Some people
basically.
just fucking, if they're the second pump in attendance, they'll sit on the back until they're told to get off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? They will
You can't
hide.
play the game. Yeah, but
But
it's
also for
impossible.
me, for other incident commanders, you've got to get involved a lot more now. And
Yeah,
even
yeah,
to be fair, to me, again, it's a romantic view, but you should be leading by example. If you want people to be fit and healthy, if you want them to be engaged, you want them to be professionally developing themselves and holding themselves to a high standard with their equipment checks and with their physical conditioning, then how are they going to learn that? They don't just learn with their ears, they learn with their
yeah,
eyes. What are you
yeah,
doing? What example are you saying? Leaders in a lot of organizations, and you're a great example. I mean, your chief's a bloody beast. I don't know what the rest of
yeah,
the
yeah,
senior leadership team are like. Maybe some of them let themselves go, but I do meet a lot of senior leaders. And to be fair, they drive a desk all day, so it's tough. But
mm,
it's about the perception. It's about what people see. You've got to lead by that example. We're going to be getting together sort of once a month moving forwards, aren't we? We sort of want to be able to put these little bits out there. We're going to cover a whole range of topics, but we've got some sort of some giveaways and stuff for people. Just give them a quick rundown of sort of how our association's working and how people can learn a little bit more. Because some people are averse to having too much structure, but a lot of people will hear the things we've been talking about today, and when they know it's anonymous and when they know they can sort of get in contact privately and have a bit of this advice, we'll put the links in the podcast, and they're in all of the podcasts for people moving forwards. But what's a couple of top tips that people can think about, and if they want a bit more guidance, how can they do that?
Right, I mean, if I firstly go through, I mean, I've got a few rules that I work by, and most of the people I work with on the online coaching program is dead basic stuff. So, first one is we'll always sort of warm up, especially like in relation to aging. Always will warm up and stretch. Can I say I do that every time? No, I must admit, but it's something that the older
I do
I
it every
get,
morning now, for
yeah,
people if they've
yeah,
got families or if you've got a dog, and we've got both. Get on the floor in the morning, because
yeah,
rather than sitting on your goddamn phone, just get on your lounge floor or get on the watchroom floor. Everyone will look at you like a complete freak to start with, yeah? But just open up them hip flexors, yeah, loosen off the back, put yourself... People always say to me, like, if we go to a meeting and the meeting hasn't started yet, and they'll be like, oh, have you hurt your back? Because I'll be on the floor stretching. And I'll be like, no, I'm doing this so I don't hurt my back. And
yeah,
they look at
yeah.
you like you're a freak, and you haven't got to be a freak like me necessarily, but 100% get into that stretching.
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, it doesn't always have to be in a physical sort of doing a yoga and bending over doing a downward dog. It's just sort of messing about and playing and rolling about and like imaginary sort of wrestling, if you like. So especially if you've got sort of young kids, just doing that and picking them up and rolling around on the floor. Obviously, your kids. Don't just forget.
Yeah, don't just break into next door and just
Yeah.
grab the 3-year-old and go, just gonna have a quick wrestle. You fucking not.
Mummy, it's him again. He's back.
It's him again, the firefighter at the window. But no, you're right, mate, because think about the job. You drop into your knees, you're reaching under a car, you're trying to get into that loft space, you're putting yourself, obviously you've got 3 points contact on the ladder, but every now and again you might lean off it to try and grab something or, pull something. You're going to be in those awkward positions.
Yeah, and it's a running joke as well in the fire service. I'm sure it's the same there, but when we do like the manual handling courses and brace and bend down properly and all that, where in a real life job it's impossible. If you're cutting up a car and you've got a heavy that are probably weigh 30 kilos, 20 kilos, like the tools, and you're leaning over somebody and things like that, it's impossible to do things. So it's all about keeping it relevant to the job, and that and going back to the training, everything we do relate back to a job. Like I say, there's no need to do 1,000 sort of burpees in 10 minutes. There's no need to do, unless you enjoy that sort of thing, obviously, then sort of knock yourself out, even if I think you're crazy. But try and just remember, why am I doing this? What do I want to get sort of fit for? So try and replicate the movements that you're doing on an everyday basis in the job, and do that in the gym. And a heavy focus on resistance training. And when I say that to a lot of people, especially when I first start working with them, that if they're not into fitness, they sort of wince a little bit. Oh, I don't like lifting weights. I don't want to get sort of bulky and blah blah blah. You don't get ripped and
You're not going
muscle
to
by
accidentally
accident.
wake up tomorrow and go, holy
Exactly.
shit, I've got a 21-inch bicep. How did that
Exactly.
happen? I feel
It doesn't
stupid
happen.
now. Everyone's going
Yeah.
to laugh at me. I promise you, you're not going
Exactly.
to accidentally wake up looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Exactly, and so it's to get the resistance training can be your body weight as well. So it doesn't always mean sort of doing loads of heavy weights. So as I keep saying, just keep playing around with the type of weights that you use on the job. So whether that means just doing a bit of research into the equipment, how much a ladder weighs and things like that, and just sort of play around with those weights, and that's all you need to do. Strength endurance, again, which is on my program, is the major sort of focus, if you like, because it's the ability, in a layman's term, it's the ability to work under high intensity for an extended period of time. So carrying like an LPP over a field, is so annoying, especially on uneven ground, and the fire is always in the worst possible place. It's never sort of right by an open gate. It's always like 100 meters
Yeah.
down there over a lake. You have to. The first thing that's going to go is your grip. So you might think that you're not sort of strong enough to pick it up. It's not that. It's the fact
Nope.
your hand is letting go.
100%.
And exactly, and if you've been doing that for if you're holding something heavy for a minute, 2 minutes to 3 minutes, it's not going to be that you can't sort of pick it up, because obviously you are picking it up. It's just going to be your grip that's going to sort of let it go. A lot of my work, exactly as you've sort of, I've took the wind out of my sails there. A lot of the work is variations of carries and things like that, and working on your grip. And it's not like today we're going to work on your grip. Today we're going to do farmers. You won't know in most of the programming that I do, and in the best program in general, you don't know what you're working. All you're doing is you're doing it, and you'll think, it's a cut and paste, not cut and paste in terms of the program, but in terms of like, all you do is you open it up, you read it, and you do it.
Yeah.
It's I tend to avoid all the fluff and the
You don't have to
explanation
think
in
about it. You're
some
not
way.
going to get
Exactly,
baffled with a load of
exactly,
bullshit around this. Oh, we're going to build this and the external
exactly.
rotation and that. And
Because
you're
nobody
like,
cares.
nobody
No,
cares. And half the
no,
time, it's
nobody
just
cares.
people trying to inflate their own ego to go,
Exactly.
look, I'm really intelligent. Look how intelligent I am. I'm going to
Yeah,
teach you because I'm extremely intelligent. Now come bow
exactly.
before me as I am the god of fitness. And you're like, who the fuck this
Exactly. Yeah.
guy?
Have you been reading my posters?
Yeah,
No.
that was a direct one.
Yeah. But
But
yeah,
no,
because I'm a
there's lots of great people out there that really do that, because a lot of the time, the simple stuff, keep it simple, stupid. Fitness hasn't really changed over the last, our understanding of the body has changed over the last 30, 40 years. But, some of these crazy, stupid machines that we've come up with these days, I often think just create hollow spots in our general strength and all round long term fitness, because it doesn't train you in every single plane. Whereas in firefighting, it's lifting and moving in a variation of different angles, different planes, different utilization of different systems of strength effectively. And if you don't do that, if you're always doing it in a supported frame, in a supported machine, you
yeah.
don't build that more rounded physical strength.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings me on to my next point actually is trying to focus onto free weights. And again, it doesn't have to be stupidly heavy weights, but there's two trails of thought in terms of for free weights or using machines. A lot of people say, especially if you're a beginner, to use machines because it gets you in the right sort of mode of movement, and the patterns, etc. I'm quite anti machines, not in general, and I'm not saying that they're bad for you and you're going to explode if you use them, but I just mean for me, an important thing in squat, for example, it's not just your legs, it's a full body movement, because your whole body is working to keep you upright. And the same with the chest press, if you're using dumbbells or barbell, whatever, any sort of free weight movement, it's all the little tiny little tendons and ligaments and little tiny sort of muscles that are used to support to hold you upright. An example I always use is I used to have a load of back issues when I was a bit younger, and I avoided sort of things like sort of deadlifts, because I think, oh, because it's going to put a load of pressure on my back. Since I've been doing sort of deadlifts, and probably in the last 5 years, I've been doing them a little bit heavier. All my all my back issues have gone.
Mm.
Now, because I always ask people, whenever your back goes, it tends to be when you're doing something stupid, like you're tying your shoelaces or you bend down to pick up a remote control. So that isn't to say that that remote control is too heavy for you. Obviously not. So it means that there's an underlying issue and some sort of support in, as you were saying, when you start to move in a slightly uncontrolled way, that's when your back goes. So the
There's
idea
that
of
hollow spot when you're
exactly,
moving from that angle to that angle
exactly,
because you've only trained in this front facing static
yeah,
position doing a machine based thing, or and then you move into this the side shoulder press. You've never trained that hollow spot over
exactly,
here,
yeah,
and that's the bit you're often things like your abdominal obliques and all those little things where people
yeah,
don't have that strength and it's not there to hold you. We're just a big bag of mush, really. You've got to
yeah.
build those structures that are going to hold you because that's what your body needs. We're bipedal people. We're not really supposed to be lifting all these big heavy things whilst we're stood on these two little pegs. The only way we
Exactly.
can do that
Yeah.
is if we work on it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the worst times that my back went. Me and my lad's 17 now, but I was changing his nappy. Not at 17. This was obviously when he was about.
He struggles, bless him.
Yeah, and he was on the bed, so it wasn't even sort of low down. Just bent over, my back completely went, and it was horrific pain. And I was out of action for a day. But that's because I wasn't doing the right type of training to support, and that's all my training is. It's a variety. It's strength endurance. You won't find me a crazy weight, so because I also adjust it for how you're feeling on that day. So I won't ever say lift 80 kilos, lift 100 kilos, lift 20 kilos, whatever. I work on an RPE scale, so the rate of perceived exhaustion, which is easy to
Mm.
say. So it's how you're feeling on that day. And as I'm aiming at firefighters, the reason I did that is if you're coming off a busy sort of night shift and you're knackered, but you still want to do a workout, your max that day might be 20-30 kilos, absolutely fine. But then you come off after your second day, you've got sort of nights on the evening, you're thinking, right, I'm feeling buzzed now, I want a good one. You might be able to get up to 60-70 kilos. So it's totally adjustable to what you do, sorry, to how you're feeling on that day. And that's another thing that's so important. Don't It's all about consistency. It's not about being perfect every day. I'd rather take someone who does an average sort of workout consistently all year round rather than someone who smashes it for 6 weeks and then just does absolutely sort of nothing. That isn't going to have any sort of long-term impact. So just slow and steady consistency, keep turning up, even if it's just half a workout. You don't do it as well as you can. The fact you've still got your gym clothes on, the fact you've still gone to the gym or you've done it at home or whatever, is so important sort of mentally because you've ticked that box, you've achieved something, no matter what the quality, if that makes sense. So that's what
No,
I'm
no,
a big
you're absolutely
advocate as
right,
well.
mate. And we use this phrase "tactical athlete." That we need to really expand our understanding of what that means because it sounds like a really cool thing. It makes us think like we're fucking
Yeah,
military or something like that. But really, when you think about tactics, it means having a variation of options and having that situational awareness of how you're feeling and what life conditions you're within, what rate of perceived exertion you're going to place into that workout. Because I've always had my biggest injuries when I've tried to follow a prescriptive powerlifting program or something like that when I am an operational firefighter, when I haven't slept properly for 3 days, but
yeah,
today it says I'm going to deadlift 280 kilos for 4 reps. And I go in
yeah.
there, or I'm going to bench this, or I'm going to squat that, and I hurt myself because my body isn't ready. And you've got to listen to it, and like you say, consistently, just showing up and doing something, not just
Mm.
showing up and fucking about on your phone and walking on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
treadmill. There's a spectrum here, folks. Understanding that and sort of losing the battle to win the war.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said about the mental sort of side as well, because I think so many people start like a 12-week program or 6-week program, and they get a couple of weeks in, and because I used to work as an online coach for another company, and it used to work on 12-week sort of programs. The amount of people would come in all guns blazing at the beginning, so full of confidence. Yeah, I'm going to smash this. And the first sort of 2-3 weeks, absolutely brilliant. Around the 3-week mark, life would get in the way and stuff would happen. Then they'd start to miss a session or two, and I was saying it's absolutely fine, don't worry, just sort of crack on then, like next day. But then their confidence would be hit, and it'd be like a countdown. You think I've only got 4 weeks left, I've only got 3 weeks left, I haven't really done as much as I should have done, and there's like a panic. Where if you
Yeah.
don't look at fitness as a short-term thing. It should just be, I don't mean a part of your life and you only eat hemp sandwiches
Yeah.
and green smoothies all year, but I mean part of your life, and that you think, I will go. If I don't go today, it's absolutely fine. Got to take my kid to school, or he's ill off school, sorry, or something like that. Shit happens all the time with people.
Mm.
It's just a matter of just keep turning up every single day, and there's no end date. It's not a race. We're not here. We're not athletes trying to peak for a competition. It's just about consistency, sort of chipping away, having it in the back of your head, and like I say, not to take over your life, because it doesn't for me. I haven't got sort of six pack abs now. I can't run a marathon and things like that.
Wait,
It's
you
all
can't?
about.
Oh shit! Right, let's
I
cancel
mean,
this whole
only one.
podcast.
But I could run two marathons.
Yeah. No, you're right, mate, and that doesn't make for a fit, healthy person. The amount of
Exactly.
people that you see in the calendars on the photographs, having worked in the fitness industry for what's it been now, 15 years, they're often the most ill people, both from
Definitely.
certainly a mentally perspective and often a physically perspective. Living in a constant deficit
Yeah.
isn't good for your body. It's not healthy. You haven't got those fat reserves that help you reduce the likelihood of injury. You don't sleep very well, and it's not good. It's really not good. I've had so many debilitating injuries from not having the right nutrients in my body and following some new flash in the pan program, eating
Yeah.
unicorn tears and mixed with keto doesn't fucking do it. We haven't got to reinvent the wheel like that.
Yeah, and and the nutrition side as well is something I think is overcomplicated in the press and everything as well. It's all about these whatever the fad sort of diet is and all that. And I'm very very anti any diet that can say that can get you somewhere in 12 weeks. I'm very sort of dubious of.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and
I know
it's
nutrition
not
is
a way
something
to
we're
live
going to
your
get
life.
into.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll park nutrition because I know we're going to cover
yeah.
that in
Okay.
the next one. So it's in the links below. People get a week free. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, everyone gets a week free. For a special treat for your lovely sort of listeners as well, I've set up a discount code. So it's only for Firefighter Podcast sort of listeners. So if you type in FFP50, and that'll give you 50% off for your first month as well. So everyone gets a 7 day free, and there's no obligation with that as well. So even if you do it, the worst case is you get a couple of ideas of programs and then you can cancel it, and then you can print them off and use them how you want. If and otherwise it rolls onto a monthly.
Plus, for
A
me,
month.
the biggest benefit is kind of actually the value of association because, I hang around in the Facebook group quite a lot and just being around like-minded people. Because if you're on a station where maybe it's not the most popular thing, or maybe you feel like you're the person that is struggling with their fitness and nobody else is, if you're around other people that are walking that same path or walking that same journey, and again, that's why I know it's not for everybody, but when I come back to the Firefighter Challenge community, it's a very similar thing. Just putting yourself around like-minded people, like we've got in the group, really gives you a sense of belonging, gives you a sense that we're all together. There's a lot of celebration and shared success that goes on in there. I know that might feel a bit wanky for some people, but I kind of like it. It's just how I kind of operate. That's the whole
Yeah,
point of the podcast, to be honest. It's about acknowledging and celebrating each other because the world isn't going to cheer for you. So if you've got another couple of people around you who can encourage you because we all have them shit days, we all have them days when it doesn't feel like we're doing very well. And when you're around a community that can help you, that's been a big benefit, I think.
shared ideas as well, because I'm not claiming to know everything. I'm sure you're not either, and that's the whole point of the community. I think as a fire service, we are generally good at that, especially on sort of station level. We're always looking over our shoulder, thinking, "Well, have you got any ideas? I don't know. What about you?" And there's no reason why that can't be transmitted to everything we do, and fitness is no exception. Because I don't, there's a certain few things that I sort of live to, and that I think that give you the best chance as a starting point, if you like. But it doesn't mean you can't sort of deviate. So, especially in my Facebook group, I'm often putting out stuff. What do people want me to do? I put up a poll out the other day. Do people want more like educational posts? A bit more sort of
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
background about, or do you just want some workouts posted? Do you want
I voted for more topless photos.
did you of
I'm
me?
not, I don't know how many people voted for that. I think I just
No.
voted myself. That wasn't on the poll. I know. It was just private comment, but
I think all my members would drop suddenly if if I did that.
Who's this dickhead? Get rid of him.
Doing sort of lunges in my lycra.
Mate, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you had a busy as hell shift yesterday, and we had to try and replan a few times. We'll be coming on again next month, touching base on a few different bits and bobs. If anybody's got anything specific they'd love to us to deep dive in, because again, total transparency, we are not the experts. We've done a bit of research here. We've gone into the depths of the internet and then our own sort of cross-reference with what we know works on the stations, people we've helped through their fitness tests to get into the fire service, people that have gone off sick and people that have gone through a bit of rehab and trying to get back on. So we don't just, we're not just winging it out here. But if you've got something specific that you'd like us to do a deep dive in, jump into the group and tell Mark and tell myself, or email it into the podcast, and we will endeavour to add value.
Brilliant. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
The Firefighters podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.